Hello, and welcome to the 2024 online Western North Carolina USTA Captains Meeting. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation and your willingness to serve or consider serving as captain in 2024. In this meeting, we will cover a brief overview of our local CTA organization, how USTA League is structured, your role as a captain and what is expected of you, resources that are available to you, rules and guidelines that you should be familiar with, and changes to our regulations for 2024 that may impact your team. My name is Jennifer Kersey. I am one of the two local league coordinators for Western North Carolina. Bevy Walker and I work closely together throughout the year, but Bevy is the lead coordinator for the spring adult and the fall combo leagues, while I head up the summer leagues, including mixed doubles, tri-level, and singles. We work under the umbrella of the Mountain League Community Tennis Association, which was formed to administer the USTA leagues in Western North Carolina. Geographically, our local league is larger than any other in the state, covering 16 counties. The Mountain League CTA board consists of representatives from the currently active CTAs, including Asheville Tennis Association, Hendersonville Tennis Association, and the Black Mountain Tennis Association. Currently, the CTAs shown in light blue, Transylvania, Isothermal, which includes Polk and Rutherford County, and Haywood, are inactive. The proceeds that we make through the USTA League registration fees are given back to the active CTAs based on the participation of players from their areas. Now let's take a quick look at how our local league fits into the greater USTA organization. Western North Carolina is one of 14 areas in the state of North Carolina. If your team advances to the state championship, you will play against winners from the other areas from across the state. Depending on the USTA League, state winners would move on to sectionals. North Carolina is one of 9 states that make up the Southern section. Southern is one of 17 sections across the United States. At nationals, teams from each section compete against each other. So now that you have an idea of how the USTA is organized, our local league season dates should make more sense. Everything is set from the top down. The national championship schedule dictates the sectional championships. The sectional championships dictate when the state championships have to happen, and that dictates when our local league seasons need to be held. Let's talk about your role. Captains are the lifeblood of USTA. The whole system depends on people like you stepping up to volunteer and lead teams of players. The graphic shown is a great definition of a captain. Every year, situations and questions come up that we hadn't imagined before. Our job as local coordinators is to help you and give you the guidance, tools, and information to make being a captain as easy as possible. So what makes a good captain? We believe there are 4 elements to being a successful captain. First, you need to have a philosophy. You need to be able to justify the things you do as captain. That doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you, but you're at least letting them know that you have a plan. And that's super important because you have a lot of people on the team who are coming at it from their own point of view and their own corner of the world. And they won't always understand why you make the decisions you make. It's important to be able to verbalize what's going on and why. Do you want a team that is going to be super competitive? You want to go to nationals? Or you just want to have a lot of fun and see how you do? Second, it's important to have a preseason meeting with your group where you can share your philosophy and how it may impact your team. If you want to try to win it all, you might want to limit the number of people on the team. And your best players will have to be committed to playing virtually every match and be able to go to the local playoffs and the state championships. If you want a fun team, then you may have as many people as you want because everybody understands the goal is to have fun. And most of the fun will be the things you're doing when you're not playing matches. But if you don't pick one of these 2 and make sure your team is on the same page, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Third, as captain, you must be super organized. Getting everybody's availability early, making your lineups early, including alternates, allows your team to make plans. Plan your season's lineups 2 to 3 weeks in advance for your team so that they can plan their schedules. Fourth, you got to over communicate. This is probably the most important element of a successful captain. Your players want to know everything that's happening, whether it's a practice, a match, rescheduling, or weather issue. They shouldn't have to ask you anything because you've already told them everything they need to know. If you can capture these four elements, it'll create a team that trusts you, who wants to play for you, and it will make your job so much easier. What should you be doing as captain before the season starts? Number one is to read the local regulations. We don't expect you to know everything, but you've got to be familiar with the local regulations and know where to find the information that's in them. It's important even for the most seasoned of seasoned captains, as the regulations are updated every year. The local regulations can be found on our website, and they will also be emailed to you in a captain's welcome email. Second, be familiar with the Captain's Handbook, which is our Cliff Notes version of the regulations. Hard copies of this are available at the in-person captain's meetings. You can also access or save copies to your devices from our website. Third, visit the Captain's Corner on our website. It is loaded with information to help you throughout the season, and it gives you access at your fingertips to it whenever you need it. We do our best to be available, but most of the answers that you need can be found in the Captain's Corner. This is also a great time to reach out to us as coordinators if you need additional players on your team. We have a large list of players that are looking for teams to play on, and we would love to connect them with you. Except for singles, all teams may have a maximum of 15 players. Captains should read all emails from us. About 1 week before your first match, we'll send you an email with your tentative schedule and a lot of necessary information for the upcoming season. Your schedule is tentative because it's waiting for approval from the facilities. Once we resolve any unexpected conflicts with the facilities, the schedules will be published and visible in TennisLink. Your initial email will also have important information about dates and deadlines you need to be aware of. It'll have links to the rules, our refund policy, and other helpful information. We try hard to give you everything that you need in one place. But if you have questions that you can't find answers to, please reach out. So you've received your schedule. What do you do now? The first thing is to send that tentative schedule to your team and start gathering your players' availability, especially for those first few matches. Also, look at any matches that may be scheduled on holidays and determine if you are going to need to put together an alternate plan. If you haven't already done so, consider having that team meeting so that you can make sure everybody is on the same page before the season starts. And finally, we've got a new team management tool in TennisLink. You'll want to start familiarizing yourself with that. Let's talk about some of the resources available to you. We send you a lot of information by email, but finding an email is not always easy. Most of what we send can also be found on our website, WNCtennis.com. At the top of the page, the second tab is Adult USTA, and the first item under that is the Captain and Players Corner. Click there. The Captains and Players Corner is divided into 4 sections. On the left, you'll see the calendar for the year, as well as the days of play for the leagues each season, and a link to the state championship site. Under the Player Resources, there's information about NTRP, TennisLink, refunds, the mobile app, and more. Under Captain's Resources, you'll find a link to the Captain's Handbook, this presentation, commonly asked questions, information on navigating TennisLink, making score corrections, and the grievance process. And finally, on the far right, you will find all our official rules and regulations from the local to the national level, as well as a link to the Friend of Court and the Code, which are the rules we follow when playing our matches. I mentioned earlier the new Tennis Team Management tool. This new tool was designed to help keep you organized and help you communicate with your players and the other captains. Keep in mind that you as captain have access and visibility to some things that your players will not. So how do you get to the team management? There are a couple of ways. One is it's under the list of My Quick Links as new team management. Another is the big blue arrow button that you will see next to your teams, or you can click on any of your things on your match calendar, and that will bring it up too. The My Match calendar view is great in the new system. It'll show you all of your matches on a calendar view, which is really useful if you're managing or playing on multiple teams. If you click on any of those matches or on your team, it's going to bring you to the team details. Here is where you'll see the team standings, your roster. You'll have the ability to add a co-captain here. The player availability is a feature on here. Players can indicate if they're available, but you as captain can also adjust a player's availability from available to not sure. You can also choose whether only the captains can view all the player availability, or if players can see everybody else's. You can also send email and text through the system, which allows you to easily communicate with your teams. You can choose to send things to select players, or only those on a lineup, or to the whole team. You can also use the feature to communicate with the opposing captain or with us, the league coordinators, via email and or text. You can set alert settings on there, which lets your alerts to set your team availability, or to remind players to update their availability, or to send auto reminders to players who haven't confirmed their spot in the match lineup. The matches section will show the match details, including the date and the time, the facility where the match is to be played, whether it's a home or away game for you, how to get directions, and also you can edit and view your match lineup, enter scores, and print scorecards there. Let's talk a minute about setting your match lineups. This allows you to create and edit a lineup. You can add custom messages for your players about what to bring, such as a reminder about balls or food. You can send the lineup via email and or text once you've decided to publish it. Until a match has been played, you can always edit the match lineup if changes need to be made. When you do that, a new notification will be sent. Only once scores have been entered will the option to edit the lineup, enter scores, or print a scorecard for a match no longer be available. The captain of the winning team should enter the scores. You'll only be able to enter scores if a lineup is published. But remember, you can update any names before entering the scores. When entering the scores, the published lineup will be used to automatically add the players' names to the scorecard. The opposing team's players are not automatically defaulted onto the scorecard. If you're worried about entering scores, remember, if you need help or you need to edit or update or dispute a match score, you can always reach out to either of us. We expect that there are going to be some uh-oh moments as we all get used to this new system. Just make your corrections as soon as possible. We really feel like this system is going to be self-intuitive, but we have posted the players and captains guides for using the new TennisLink system on our website if you need it. Another resource you should be familiar with if you are an Apple user is the TennisLink app for your phone. This is available for all players. It's not going to give you accessibility to as much as you can get through the TennisLink management tool, but it does have a lot of useful features, including entering scores, which can be nice to do on the courts with the opposing captain after your match concludes. Next, I want to talk about rescheduling. To begin with, when can you reschedule? If you and the other captain mutually agree, you can reschedule a match or a line before the original match date. You can also choose to play at a different time on the original match date. The only time you are allowed to reschedule after the match date is for the following reasons. The first is inclement weather. Matches should not be called off from inclement weather until both captains agree that the courts will be unplayable at match time. Travel times should be considered in rescheduling due to the size of our league area. Captains, you must communicate with each other. If you text, do not assume your text was received. You need to call if you don't get a response. Someone may be driving. Second, if a facility closes their courts for any reason, you can reschedule. Third is our championship and local USTA sanctioned tournament conflicts. Actually, it's third and fourth. If you have 4 or more players, 3 for singles, that are playing in a state championship or one of the approved local tournaments, such as the Asheville Open, Banana Open, or Apple Open, you can reschedule the impacted lines. And new this year is holiday conflicts. If your match is scheduled on a regulation listed holiday, you and the other captain can reschedule either the line or the match after that day within the 2-week guidelines. You need to let that captain know at least a week in advance for any of the championship, local tournament, or holiday conflict issues. Rescheduling is a challenge for captains. So here are a few things to think about. First, avoid rescheduling if at all possible. If your best players are not available to play because of a tournament conflict or holiday, but you can still put together a lineup, we strongly encourage you to do so. Next, as captain, you are responsible for canceling any court reservations that you don't need and making new reservations. Third, rescheduling a whole match can be very difficult due to player and court availability. So you should consider rescheduling your match line by line. If you do this, please do not exchange your lineups until you are physically on the court to play that line. You can put another player in charge of coordinating a line to make up, but once you officially say that player is in the lineup, you are obligated to play them unless inclement weather postpones the match a second time, or that player is ill or injured prior to the start of the scheduled match. To avoid problems, we recommend that you keep your lineup as flexible as possible by not exchanging names until you are physically on the court. And last, indoor courts. If you're looking at inclement weather and there are indoor courts available, we strongly encourage you to share the cost with the other team and get the match played on the date scheduled. Players have already blocked out that time on their schedule, so this advantage should be used. If someone doesn't want to play indoors, but the other team is willing to pay the entire cost, they are obligated to play that match indoors. To have a valid match, the majority of the courts must be played. If Team A and Team B played one line and each took a default with the remaining 2 lines, this would not be a valid match, and it would be scored as a full team default. If you're not going to be able to field players for the majority of your lines, you need to let your opponent know that you have to default the match. Consider sportsmanship. Do not make them travel to find this out. A team cannot benefit because of a full team default. So if this happens, the standings will be evaluated and a team's matches may be removed to determine the flight winner. And if a team has 2 or more full team defaults, their matches are removed and they are subject to a grievance. Encourage your players to arrive early to avoid defaults. The 15-minute default rule says that a player must be on the court, ready to receive a ball by 15 minutes after the scheduled match time. Courts are defaulted from the bottom of the lineup. So what do you do if a player is not on site at match time? Your court reservations are made for 90 minutes, so holding up all the lineups is not a good idea. We recommend that captains go ahead and exchange scorecards and begin playing. If the missing player arrives before the 15-minute default time, they just go on the court that they're assigned and they begin play. If they arrive after the default time, then the default is entered on the scorecard on a defaultable court. So, for example, you went ahead and started even though your number 1 singles player was running late. If they did not get there in time, then the number 2 singles court would be recorded in Tennis Link as the number 1 singles court, and that your late player would be recorded as the number 2 singles court as the default. Your only other option is to wait on all of your lines until the missing player is on site and ready to play. Then exchange your scorecards and play the match. Again, if your courts are in demand and people are playing after you, this is not a good idea. In this case, if your player was not there within the default time, you would have to rearrange your lineup and put them on the defaultable court, start everybody up, and get your match started. The last option is to substitute a missing player with an eligible player that is on site and ready to play, but's not listed on your original scorecard. The substitution has to be made within the 15-minute default time, and you can only be exchanged for the missing player in the original lineup. You can't decide to shuffle your lineup around at that point. If you have teammates coming to watch the match, encourage them to come ready to play in case you need to make a last-minute substitution. Sometimes people get injured during the warm-up or have an unexpected flat tire. Something comes up. And avoiding a default is a win for everybody. Staggered matches. The staggered match format is used mostly in the spring leagues when our courts are in high demand. If not enough courts are available for all of your lines, you may have staggered noted on your emailed schedule. A 5-court match would have 3 courts available. You start by playing your 2 lines of singles and line 1 doubles, and then your other 2 doubles lines would start as soon as a court finishes. A 3-court match would stagger when only 2 courts are available. The regulations state that your entire team must be on site at the start of the match unless you and the other team mutually agree to let the staggered courts arrive 1 hour late. If you want to do this, make sure you document your agreement with the other captain in writing, either by text or email, so there's no misunderstanding. Advancing to the state championships should be discussed with your team at the start of the season. It is important that you ensure all of your players are qualified by playing them in the minimum number of matches listed in the regulations. Your team may advance in the following ways. You finish first in your flight, or if you finish second and the first place team declines the invitation. If you're in a flight with a playoff, the winner would get the invitation and the second place team would be the backup. Or if you are in a 1-team flight that is a direct advance team, meaning that you don't have to qualify to move forward. Some ages and levels require a qualifying event if they are the only team in a flight. In this case, we would work together with you to schedule a qualifying event, typically over a weekend, so that each of your players has the minimum number of matches they need in order to advance to the championships. The last way to go is by an invitation through the wild card. Wild cards are drawn by the state at the start of the season and are posted on the North Carolina tennis website. The wild card list determines the order of an invitation to teams to replace a team that cannot attend. Local playoffs. When do we have local playoffs? If you are in a flight with a large number of teams, it may be subdivided into 2 flights with the winner of each flight playing in a local playoff to determine who would advance to the state championship. You may also play in a local playoff if you are in a flight with a partial round robin, where you don't play each team and each team doesn't play each other an equal number of times. So say you play everybody once and then you play team A and team B twice, but another team plays team C and team D twice. That would be a partial round robin. We use those to give you more matches during the season when we can't give you a full round, second round. In any case, when you have a partial round robin or a 2-flight thing and you go to a local playoff, the local playoff will be communicated. You will know that at the beginning of the season that you were in a flight with a local playoff and what those dates are. It's important to note that having a local playoff shortens the time that you have to complete your regular matches, which means you cannot get behind on your makeup matches. Your window to get those played is shorter than it would be if you were not in a flight with a local playoff. Local playoffs are scheduled at a neutral site. However, if both teams prefer and agree and courts are available, it can be moved somewhere to their preference. And everybody that plays in the local playoff must be eligible to play in the state championship, meaning they must have the minimum number of matches required to be eligible for the state championship before they go to the local championship playoff. Let's go over some regulation changes for 2024. First, spring adult 40 and over is moving to a minimum roster of 9 players, except at the 2.5 and 5.0 levels, which will continue to have 6 players. At the national level, the format has changed to a 4 doubles, 1 singles line. Consequently, the need for 9 players as the minimum roster. At the state level, we will continue to have 3 doubles and 1 singles as the format. Locally, our format will continue to be 3 doubles because of a lack of courts in the spring. So if your team is in 40 and over this spring and you advance to the state championship, you will have to play a line of singles at the state championship. Next, mixed doubles is moving to straight levels. Partners will no longer be able to be 1.0 NTRP points apart. Like spring, you will be able to play at your NTRP level or 1 level up. For example, last year on a 7.0 team, a 3.0 player could partner with a 4.0 player. This year, those players could not play together. The 3.0 player could play on a 3.0 or a 3.5 team, and the 4.0 player could play on a 4.0 or 4.5 team. Next, Summer Tri-Level League results will now count towards your NTRP year-end rating. This is great for those players who don't get many matches in the spring, such as our 2.5 and our 4.5 players. So take that into consideration if you're considering a summer league. Next, age-related appeals are no longer going to be an option. The last day to add players. Players can be added to a team roster at any point during the regular season. But however, please keep in mind there are no refunds after your team has played their first match, whether the player played or not. And players must have played in a minimum number of regular season matches to advance to any local playoff or state championship. The exception to this last day is for teams with no local competition, both direct advance and those needing to qualify. These teams have their own deadlines to have their roster complete, which are in the regulations, and cannot have players added after those dates. A full team default, as mentioned before, cannot benefit a team in the standings. Player self-rating changes. If a self-rated player must self-rate again to register for another league and they receive a higher rating, they will be able to continue to play at the lower rating for the team on which they were previously registered. Scorecard corrections. If you have a line in your match that is forfeited, please pay attention to which players you put down to receive that forfeit. Those names cannot be changed after 48 hours. Player refund request form. This is new. It'll be on our website, and we'll direct you to that when you need it. Individual line scorecard exchange. We discussed this earlier, but be sure to read the regulations in regard to this as it has been updated. Holiday conflicts. Debbie and I do our best to avoid scheduling you on holidays if at all possible. We've already discussed that this is a new in our regs this year and allows you to reschedule matches or individual lines under the inclement weather rules if you need to. I want to point out, though, that this change is under evaluation this year. If we decide it's causing more problems than it is alleviating, it will be removed in 2025 and we'll go back to where the only option for a match that had to be scheduled on a holiday is to play the lines early. So please use this only if you absolutely have to avoid defaulting lines. Captains are leaders. Sportsmanship should drive all decisions. The player promise is a great reminder that our matches are unofficiated, and for the league to run smoothly, it is the responsibility of every player to exhibit the true spirit of sportsmanship. Please be familiar with the Friend at Court, which has the rules players should be following on the court. We'll send you a link and be sure to share it with your players. And please give special attention and patience to our young and new players who may not know everything yet and need an inviting atmosphere so that they will continue to participate in USTA League Tennis. Thank you for being and planning to be a USTA League captain. We look forward to seeing you on the courts and growing together the sport we all love in Western North Carolina.